Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how I rebuild my Infiniti engine with just a shoelace. My name is Jeremy, this is Region Automotive, and let's get to work. Okay, so just to catch you guys up with what's been going on with this thing, I'll link the previous video in the description below. So I had this Infiniti for about a year, replaced the timing chain on it, and then I had a superficial knock within, I don't know, 8 or 10 months of driving it. I thought it was timing chain, found out in the video it was not a timing chain, it actually was a spun rod bearing. So today I'm going to take apart the engine and we're going to polish the crankshaft with this shoelace and sandpaper. I'll show you just a technique to, again, some people argue that this is not the proper way to do it, rebuild the whole engine or replace the engine. I get that. It's my personal car. I'm trying to fix it up and get it running for as cheap as possible. So I'm going to show you how I do that with the shoelace. So first I will show you with what's going on here. I have the subframe. Where's the subframe? Over here. Have the subframe removed. That actually wasn't as bad as I was expecting. Just lower control arms, a couple main bolts, sway bar, power steering rack took off to the side there. It's just hanging loosely. So I got the subframe completely out and the motor supported from the top. Obviously quite important with a engine support stand thing, bar. So I got the subframe out. Now I'm getting this upper oil pan, and luckily sometimes the timing cover like protrudes past the upper oil pan. So you have to take the timing cover off first and then upper oil pan. I'm glad in this case I don't have to take the timing cover off, but this is the all-wheel drive model, so I'm dealing with this front differential. So right now I am breaking this drive shaft loose. I'm hoping, or a CV axle, I'm hoping that I can just swing this out of the way, and then there's going to be some sort of flange shaft thing that's going to lock into the diff that will slide out. And then I'll disconnect the diff from the oil pan, and then hopefully the oil pan just drops right down. So let's see if we can make that happen. Don't you just love it when things go according to plan? So I was correct that this was like a flange with a shaft going through the upper oil pan. So there's a flange that I unbolted the axle from here. And then there's just 3 bolts that held that flange on. And then I just took a punch behind and just hit it a couple times, and it released the splines from the front diff there. Got our starter out, disconnected the battery. So now I have access. I would be able to drop my upper oil pan, but I have the diff in the way. So I'm hoping I can just remove a few of these mounting bolts and just have it like kind of like have the pan come down and swing out to the right. So let's play around with that a little bit and see how easily I can get this upper oil pan out. I hope, saying that out loud, I don't have to remove this front diff. Let's see if I can get it out without removing the front diff. I ended up removing the differential. I'll tell you my logic at the time, and then I'll tell you why it needed to be removed regardless. So my logic at the time is I've already made it this far. There's an extra 6 bolts. And in my experience, taking shortcuts like that, I just end up doing it anyway. And then also the main reason is like, sure, if I was able to get all the pan bolts off, it kind of jimmy the pan out there. But like, good luck once I have that pan wet with the RTV silicone, I have to put it on perfectly straight up. So like, I was thinking like, there's no way I'd be able to jimmy it on there without destroying my bead of silicone. So that's the main reason why I took it off. But the reason why it had to come off is there's this little bore here, I guess. And the diff, this little nubbin, stuck in that bore and sealed on that bore for that tube that went through the pan. So there's no way I would have been able to lower that because the that nub there was like in that bore, and it would have bound and held everything up. So I'm confident that if you have a G35X, there's no way you can remove the upper oil pan without removing the subframe and diff, just so you know. So now we have all that stuff out of the way. I'm just gonna go around, I already took my starter out. There's just some bolts going through the upper oil pan into the bell housing, all the bolts in. I'm going to get that all off, and let's get our pan off here and see what's going on with our bearings. Finally got the upper oil pan off, and look at all that material sitting on the pan, all that glitter. So yeah, like I said in my last video, this thing had a bit of a knock at certain RPMs for a few thousand kilometers until it finally gave up. So I'm guessing all that metal just came from that constant knock, just slowly removing material until it's spun. So let's get that windage tray off there and see how chewed up this bearing is. Bingo was his name. Oh, that is bad, bad, bad. That's that one suspect cylinder that we've been dealing with this whole time. There's actually quite a bit, like, so these bearings are spun on each other, and I'm pretty sure these have been spun for a while. Question mark? No, I think they've been wearing for a while, because there's like no bearing left on the side there. That just wore through the edges. Like the bearing was literally disintegrating away. That's crazy. So yeah, it must have been spun for those few thousand, or no, it must have been wearing for the few thousand kilometers I drove it. And then it spun finally and shut down. So like, yeah, that bearing's been hanging on. And the reason why I don't think it's spun right away is because I think we'd see, like, yeah, there is marring, I guess, on the rod cap, and then the same thing on the piston side. But I think if this was spun and is running for that long, we'd see a lot more damage on the cap there. So anyway, I haven't built a lot of engines, but that is the worst I've seen out of the spun bearings I've dealt with. Really bad. Just for comparison, here's the adjacent cylinder. Has a little bit of wear, like there's a little bit of material like impregnated in the bearing there, but like I'd say that's pretty normal for this car. Like these bearings actually don't look too bad, the non-spun ones, because this car has 248,000 kilometers, so this many miles. So I would say this is normal wear for the mileage, and then obviously that's abnormal spinning the bearings. So yeah, that doesn't look good. I'm surprised the car even ran. Like I said, that's the worst I've seen. So there's all our metal literally just disintegrating that bearing. But yeah, so where does the shoestring, say that 10 times over, come into play? So you see the crank journal there. On the adjacent cylinder, it's still relatively clean. On this cylinder, it has the bearing material, just like bits of the bearing material, like stuck on the crankshaft essentially. So what we're gonna do is wrap sandpaper. I'm gonna start at like 600 or 800 grit, probably 800, then 1000, 1500, 2000. Essentially, I'm just gonna scrape, like polish off all that bearing material that's stuck to the crankshaft. These bearings are specifically designed, so the bearings are super soft and the crankshaft is super hard. So I'll be able to get that mirror finish again without removing material on the crank. It's a bit of a backyard method, but like I said, this is my personal car. I'm doing this for experimentation. So far I have $100 of the project, much cheaper and less time than rebuilding the whole engine or replacing the engine. So I'm gonna do this, and then I'm curious how long it lasts for and how it runs. So I'll get out the shoestring and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. I ended up using 600, the width of that crankshaft journal there. And I wrapped it around the crankshaft on top of itself, sprayed some WD-40 on the sandpaper, and then I wrapped a shoelace around. So now I'm just using the shoelace, and essentially I'm polishing that crank, removing all the bearing material from the crank. So I'm gonna go through with 600, 800, 1000, 2000, just working my way up to totally polish that crank and get rid of all the material off the crank. And I'll show you how clean it turns out afterwards. Okay, so it's been about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 passes or so. I just cut strips of 600 grit sandpaper, put some penetrant spray on the like grit side, I guess, to lubricate it. I found 600 actually was pretty good. So yeah, if we look at that finish we got there, like that's pretty much a mirror finish. So what we did is just polish off all that bearing material that was kind of like embedded in the crank. So next up, yeah, I got these bearings, Rock Auto top line bearings, and then got new bolts from Infiniti, got our torque specs from Infiniti. So next up, I'm going to install those bearings, and I'm going to replace all the bearings while I'm here. I figured I would show you how to do one rod bearing here because I'm sure everyone's curious. In my opinion, I'm just breaking this loose. I have a 10 mil 12-point socket. That's what these bolts are. I was going to say, in my opinion, Changing the bearings itself isn't too hard. It's just getting to the bearings, which is the hard part, as you saw from all the work to get to this point. I break the rod bolts loose there. I'm just gonna loosen them down, leave them threaded still a little bit like that. And then I'm just taking a little punch just on the side of the bearing, just to knock it loose off of the rod like that. Something like that. Take the bolts out. I just throw them on the ground because they're garbage, sweep them up later. And carefully take the cap off like that. And yeah, actually we can see these bearings don't look good at all. There is a bit of metal in that little hole in the bearing, so it's definitely saw some metal from the other bearing, and they're kind of wearing, oh, that just fell out. Yeah, so anyway, that just pops out. And there was a fair amount of wear on them, so it's a good thing that we're doing all these bearings. Okay, so I have the rod cap off, and I'm gonna push the piston into the cylinder there, rotate the crank out of the way, like that, and then I pull the piston back down. Get that out of the way a little bit more. And I pull the piston down. Maybe. There you go. So I'm just pulling it down just like that enough to so I can get this bearing out. So I just slip this guy out like that. So that guy's out. You can see it's definitely worn. Not horrible, but definitely some wear on there. So it's good replacing all of them. So I kind of just wipe things, since obviously there's only that one bearing we had spun. So I'm just cleaning up the crank, cleaning up the connecting rod here. So I have engine assembly lube, just coat the surface there so it's not dry when you start it up. And then also I will be rotating this car. I'll be pulling the fuel pump fuse and rotating the engine quite a few times just to get everything oiled up in the oiling system. So yeah, the bearing itself goes in just like so. So yeah, there's a notch there. The bearing lines up with the notch on the connecting rod. So now I'm going to push this back up into the cylinder and onto our crankshaft. And then I'm just going to kind of hold it with the crankshaft while I rotate the engine to get it back down in the bottom in the open there. Push that down. So I have the new bearing on our cap here, as I just rub the assembly lube, and you can see the little notch there that goes in the cap. There's the same thing on the connecting rod. So the bearings are the same either way. You just have to line them up with the notch. And then there's two little holes in the connecting rod cap that lines up with two holes on our connecting rod here. So I just make sure those are lined up, clicked in like so. These are torque to yield. I'll show you what that means in a sec. So brand new bolts from Infiniti. And then when guys, what they say when you have to oil the bolts, so I put oil in the threads and then oil on the head of the bolt there, like on the face of the bolt, because that's going to see friction and the threads are going to see friction. So it reduces the friction on the bolt when we torque it. So just thread that in. Same story for the other side, oiled bolt. So the first step for our torque procedure is 30 foot-pounds. So get that one tight, and then I'll go to this one. So there's one side. The other side, I like to just double check both sides. And then the next step is 90 degrees. So what I'm doing is I'm marking this guy like this. I'm putting two ticks in line with the cap, the rod cap, and then I'm going to get my breaker bar. I'm going to turn this until this red line is perpendicular, so that's 90 degrees. Okay, so we'll do this one first. Almost there. A little bit more. Perfect. So that's 90 degrees for the one side and 90 degrees for the other side. Just like that, that's how you replace a connecting rod bearing. Like I said, not too hard. Then just spin everything. Make sure she's nice and smooth, which she is. So now I'm going to go ahead and replace the last bearing, and then we'll work on getting this mess back together. All right, guys, I've messed up, but it's kind of a blessing in disguise. So I'll tell you what happened here. As you can see, there's like a little drain port. Actually, a spring came out, so I think it was a check valve. Usually these oil pumps have a check valve in them. So I was going to take this off because I wanted to see if there's any metal in it or drain oil out or whatever. This is for the oil pump. So I just wanted to see if there's anything interesting in there. And there's like a big plug with a 24 millimeter head. So I don't know what size of thread that would be, but big. Is pretty tight. So I used like a 1/2 ratchet. That wasn't breaking it loose. And then I grab my breaker bar, go to break it loose, and it starts to break loose. I'm like, great. So I lower it down. I was going to get the ratchet. And then I see pieces of the oil pump coming off. I'm like, what the heck? So what happened is, where is it? So here's thread. Not too sure where the bolts made it off to in this mess, but anyway, so the, yeah, I was trying to take the bolt off. It's seized in these weak cast threads, so it just blew apart that oil pump plug there, or housing. But I guess it's a blessing in disguise, because I was thinking, you know, the pickup tube goes here and it's sitting in the oil. It's like just totally diluted with those metal flakes or whatever. So the oil pump's going to pick it up and pump it through the filter, wherever the filter was here, I think, and then it goes up into the engine through the rest of the oiling system. So the oil pump would have seen a lot of that metal anyway. So that's actually why I took that off, because I wanted to see if there's metal. So it's actually probably good that I'm replacing the oil pump, because that'd be the one thing that would have seen a lot of that metal. So it's bad news, I guess. But I've done the timing chain so many times on these things that anyway, I got to take this crank off, this front cover, the main chain to get to this oil pump. So got a little bit more work for myself, but like I said, it's probably the best thing to replace that anyway. So now got our new oil pump on there. If you can see, new oil pump. So now we're back to reassembling everything. I got the timing cover off for the oil pump, and just to show you, if you didn't watch my last videos, I like these timing chain systems because they have the colored link. So the yellow link is lined up with the dot on the VVT gear phaser, I guess. Not I guess, it is a phaser. This guy, yellow, lined up on the dot. And then I like to mark the crank has like a little line on it. So I just mark it with red paint there. So I just line up the red line with the orange link. And then I didn't mess with my secondary chain, so I know everything's in time. Rotated over a couple times, everything was happy. So now we're gonna go and just go to town and get all this stuff back together. All right, we are making some good progress as far as the undercarriage goes. I got the upper oil pan on, timing cover on. I'm gonna do an oil flush. I'll show you guys later what I do, but I just got the cheapest piece of crap oil filter I can find because I'm only gonna run the car 15, 20 minutes. Got the subframe all bolted up, all the suspension bolted up. That was a bit of work getting that all lined up. Definitely gonna need a wheel alignment, obviously. Pretty much had the whole front suspension taken off the car. Steering rack, that's all in. Control arm, that's all in. Everything's all good and tight under here. So I'll take you up top and show you what we have left to do up there. We are at the top of the car. I have, like I said, the subframe's all torqued down, and then the engine mounts sit on the front subframe. That's all tightened up, so now I can take my engine bar off because the engine is supported again. And then, like I said earlier, as I showed you guys, I got the timing chain cover on. So next up, I'm just gonna go to town, put the valve cover on, intake, all the front pulleys, accessories here, and then yeah, I'll show you what I'm going to use for a flush, and then we'll flush it and do our first start. Fingers crossed. All right, so let's discuss engine flush. So pretty much what I want to do, since I had the engine open, you know, there's contaminants and stuff like that, and then really I want to try to like rinse all like the residual metal out. I tried to clean as much as I could while I was in there. Replace the oil pump as we saw. Obviously, I cleaned the whole bottom end. New cheap filter. And then I'm going to dump a couple quarts of ATF. And then I just have like oil, like just tailings of oil. Like, you know, this just has a half a quart or something. That is a quart. So I'm just going to get rid of all my old oil. So a couple quarts of ATF. Rest just mixed oil. And then, so first I'm going to crank the car over because I want to get oil on all the dry surfaces. Like I did put that assembly lube on the rod bearings, but obviously you want to get full oil in there. And then same thing, I primed the oil, or I put a little oil in the pump and it kind of spun it so it wasn't dry. But I want to rotate the engine a good probably 30 seconds or a minute total just to circulate oil throughout the whole system. Right now, like intake's off, everything's unplugged, so obviously it's not going to start. So I'm going to put my fluids in, rotate it over for those 30 seconds or a minute since I have the spark plugs out, and then I'll put everything back together enough so we can run it. So let's dump in our fluids here and crank her over. 2 quarts of ATF, half a quart of leftover oil, about 1.5 quarts of other leftover oil. Let's check our dipstick. Oh, it's registering already, so that's good. So yeah, we got that much. You can see the ATF that's mixed with the oil. It's right at the low mark, so I'm going to add 1 more quart to bring it right around in the middle of the dipstick there. And another quart of leftover oil. Yeah, we're registering. We're right at the high mark on the dipstick, so that's good. I think I have enough of everything connected. Got the oil in. So I'm going to crank it over, and you guys can take a look on things for me to see if anything's out of the ordinary. Sweet. Sounded pretty good to me in the car. How'd it sound to you guys? I know it sounds a little weird. The couch just like continuously cranking. It's making that high whirring noise, but that's the sound of the starter. You're used to hearing the starter when there's compression because I have all the plugs out, so I don't want to work the starter, kill my battery. So I have all the plugs out, so the starter like making that whirring noise is because there's no resistance on it, just freely spinning. So I did 4 key cycles. Each one was about, I think the first one was like 20 or 30 seconds, and it detected it wasn't starting. So then the other ones were like 10 or 15 or something. So probably about 30 seconds to a minute of cranking without the spark plugs out, anything connected. So I think we got enough oil, at least on the bearings, and prime the pump a little bit. So now I'm going to put everything back together, and let's try starting it. All right, I think we have enough junk back together here. I got the intake, that side valve cover, intake boot or pipe, whatever you want to call this, throttle bodies, all that stuff, all the wiring, grounds, plugs. So fingers crossed, hopefully everything's in, and theoretically it should start. So let's try it. This is the first time since I haven't started this on camera before. This is live, so let's try it. Hey, let's go, guys. It fired right up. Let's freaking go. And it sounds pretty good, actually. I don't hear any of that crazy rattling noise. Man, that's awesome. That sounds really, really good. Oh, as it's... That's funny. You literally can't make that up. I was talking about how good it sounded, and it literally stalled out. Like, that wasn't planned at all. So, yeah, let's figure out why it stalled out. I'm guessing... Not too sure, actually. Maybe something was unplugged, battery. Not too sure. I'll dig around and get back to you. Okay, guys. I got it running again. So I noticed when I started the car, the engine light was on. So I scanned the engine light, and it had like a plethora of codes, like throttle position, throttle actuator, blah, 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 blah. Reason why is because, as we saw, I rotated the car there with everything unplugged. So the computer was just littered with codes. So I think it just didn't know what to do, so it shut off. But I cleared all the codes, and then now it's been running for 30 seconds or a minute. Running good, sounds good so far. I'm gonna put now all our accessories on. So like right now the alternator, power steering, none of that's connected. So I'm going to put all the belt drive on, radiator fan and coolant, and then we will properly bleed it while we do our 15-minute, 20-minute flush, and then let's go for a drive. I think it sounds good. I'll rev it up like just a little bit. Maybe not because there's trans fluid in there. But anyway, it sounds good. It's not screeching, it's not knocking, so I think it's good so far. But like I said, I'm going to shut it off and put everything back together and then bleed it. But yeah, first I'll show you guys how it starts up here. Starts pretty good if I don't say so myself. Sounds pretty good. No more knock or high-pitched screeching, so that's good. Yeah, like I said, I'll let the cooling system bleed off here. I'll run the engine for 10 or 15 minutes, change out the oil. So we have our little oil trans concoction mix there draining. Let me just move that back so that doesn't go over the floor. And yeah, so I ran the car for about 10 or 15 minutes. And like I said, I cleaned all the metal I could. So considering how much metal was in there before and how much is on the drain plug after 10 or 15 minutes of running, I would say that flush worked pretty good, or just the cleaning. So anyway, I'm very happy with that amount of metal on the plug after cleaning everything out and flushing. So let's get the oil changed here with some fresh, regular uniform oil, and then we'll go for a drive. We have some good news. For one, the alignment is so wacky, which is expected. This is straight, so obviously I'll have to get that wheel alignment. A couple lights on, slip could be on because, let's see if you can see that. Where's that button? I don't even remember. It's been so long since I drove this thing. Yeah, so the traction lights are on probably because of the wheel alignment or something needs to be reset. Service engine soon. Tell me the fuel level is off, which I know it needs a fuel sender because the fuel gauge doesn't work. Airbag light, I remember last time I did this job, I had to reset the airbag light, the timing chain job. So that will get reset. But besides all that, I'll even roll down the window for you here. Let's go for a little pull. Sounds pretty good to me if I don't say so myself. I would say that's a working engine. What do you guys think? All right, guys, that's gonna call it for this video. Thanks for watching. Just to highlight everything we went over, obviously we figured that we had spun bearings, and I showed you a way that you could fix the spun bearings by polishing the crankshaft with Shoelace. Again, I know this is not the proper procedure. The proper procedure would be to rebuild or replace the engine, but put your comments below how long you think this engine's gonna last for. Like, to put it into perspective, the reason why I did it is because the cost of the bearings, rod bolts, oil, all that stuff cost me like, I don't know, $300 and some dollars, which is like 3 or 4 tanks of fuel for this thing, versus if I rebuilt the engine or replace it, it would be the whole value of the car. So put your comments below how long do you think this repair is going to last, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and have a good day. Thanks, guys.